I can get okay, great. So, hey everyone, this is Solomon from Toronto, Canada. Good morning from here, and we have our panelist from the Middle East. So, good afternoon there. Uh, Before I start, I just want to thank CyberX and CISO Forum team and my panelists actually who took the time to participate in this session. So just a little intro of the panelists, and then we will go to the questions and the discussion. So on with us we have Mr. Mustafa. He is like a UAE president and also practice lead of Wipro Middle East and North Africa. So he will be with us. After that we have Mr. Ahmed Marwan Al Nazi, and he is CISO, visionary leader, and he is representing Saudi Arabia. We have another person with us from Qatar. His name is Ahmed Javed, and he has a deep experience in digital trust, which is our topic of today. So building a digital trust in this age is the topic of discussion. So we will have a discussion in two formats actually. We will start about digital innovation, digital transformation a little bit, and then we will talk about digital trust and how to build that. So I will kick off this with Mr. Ahmed Marwan. So Mr. Ahmed, from our experience, things have changed, and everybody start talking about digital transformation, and people have basically speed up this process because of COVID-19. How do you see digital innovation in Middle East? And if you can share your experience, like as compared to other parts of the world, representing Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. Mr. Ahmed Marwan.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for having me in this esteemed panel. I remember I have read the report from McKinsey in 2016 predicting that 160 million potential digital users will be in 2025. Digital transformation contributes directly to economic growth and leading higher GDP. Now, the COVID-19 actually, what it did, it accelerated digital transformation in this during this pandemic. So our concept or our application of digital transformation has changed because of the pandemic. We accelerated some parts of the digitalization strategy. So for example, in the infrastructure, we expanded our capabilities to do things remotely, okay? But for consumer-based verticals that provide commodity or services for consumers, they had to rethink their business model. They had to change the way they provide their services to their consumers or end users, and totally base it on digital infrastructure, digitalizing the whole service cycle. Even in the back office, companies had to rethink how they can do things remotely. So for example, we have seen a spike in the adoption of digital signature as a complete replacement for the traditional hand signature, for example, and how we can develop the trust behind the systems that maintain this digital signatures. Now here in Saudi Arabia, fortunately for us, we had the Vision 2030 started a few years back. And during this pandemic, alhamdulillah, I can say that we were in a very good shape. And I remember His Excellency Engineer Abdullah Suwaha said that it is part of MCIT's effort to establish a robust and cutting-edge digital infrastructure for the whole government, as you can see. And it's part of the Vision 2030, which aims to promote the ICT sector, the whole ICT sector, and as it plays a critical role in building this digital infrastructure. So in my opinion, digital transformation now became an essential capability for our organization to survive such events in the future. And we have taken steps that we cannot go back. So we developed these, we expanded our infrastructures and developed them in a way that, and we have to continue our journey on this way. We cannot go back to the traditional way of doing the business. We have to continue doing things the way we are doing it right now, remotely, and rethinking our business models. So this is my opinion about the impact of digitalization on the Middle East, and I think there are much to come, and there are much to learn, and there are much to do in this area.
Understand. Thank you, Mr. Ahmed, for your contribution and sharing your perspective. And I can tell you, like from our experience, digital transformation actually, have really changed the world. Like I remember we used to travel to different parts of the world to attend conferences. Now we are having this conference in Canada, and we are, going internationally, and we have speakers from all over the world. So that has changed a lot. So we don't need to travel to attend conferences, learn from other people's perspective and sharing knowledge. So that's great. So, Mr. Mustafa, I'll ask you about, what do you think is the role of security leadership in accelerating and adopting digital transformation or digital innovation? And how do you see security leaders in the Middle East and North Africa, since you have experience of covering both? How do you see security leaders are contributing to the success and I would say the acceleration of digital innovation?
This is something also very interesting when you talk and touch base on the security leadership. And I think it plays a great role. Let me divide, because you have asked two different questions. You look at it, what brought to the attention? It is just today that we are sitting in pandemic, but even post pre-pandemic days, when the digital journey started, Ahmed talked about Saudi Arabia being 2030 vision. There are other countries, if you look at UAE, where I'm based out of, having, to have the government having the digital community, we call it Digital Dubai, and so on and so forth. Every organization has taken that back. Now, the security leadership, very surprisingly, and this is a surprise to me when I was talking earlier around 6-7 months ago, when there were special budget cuts and all those things were happening around the world, the security layer was being invested into. And for the simple reason is, today, if you look at this entire supply chain ecosystem, in that the digital has played a key role. And people want to transform the traditional way of mechanisms of doing business. Ahmed also touched based on digital signature. You also look at today we are talking on Zoom, right? How many of us have heard Zoom before pandemic days? And how many of, so there are technologies which has leaped, and it is all security driven, initiatives are there. I have seen, and if you look at Forrester's report, or if you look at Gartner's report, you will always see that there's a spike in the spend of security. So which means from a leadership standpoint, there is a specific focus, because security is not like earlier days. It used to reside with the security leadership only. Today, the security is the accountability of the board, the accountability of the business. The business is interested. They wanted to know, and they wanted to see that their business continues. So one of the fundamental pillar of business resilience is security. And that security is now, I see that leadership is coming forth. There is a lot of innovation which I see today in the digital world itself. When we talk about digital security, when we talk about zero trust, when we talked about untrusted platforms, the fundamental definition of trust means that you don't trust anyone. Everything is untrusted. Earlier we used to call it internal networks. Now we call it external networks also. Regardless, everything is now untrusted, because your digital transformation is solely now dependent on the digital platforms. So you don't know whether it is within the organization or it is outside the organization. The barrier of those internal and external has gone out. it is now we are living in a one ecosystem. So I personally, just to wrap up that answer of mine, just to put the context, leadership has shown great. We have seen across from a large corporate organizations. I have seen, in Saudi Arabia, I'm heavily involved there. In South Africa, I have seen. In North Africa, I have seen. In Egypt and all, where digital transformation project has gone, and primarily it is many of them is being co-sponsored by security. So the security leadership is doing a fundamental role, and it has increased. And I think I'm seeing that this trend will continue. In fact, it will grow further. There's a lot of innovation we expect, especially utilizing artificial intelligence, machine learning capabilities. All these will help and adopt in the zero trust.
Great, thanks, Mr. Pali. I will come back to you regarding zero trust, because that is a very interesting topic. So when we continue with the discussion, I'll come back and we will chat more about zero trust.
Sure.
So we have Mr. Ahmed Javed from Qatar. So I want to get Qatar's experience on digital innovation. And Ahmed, what do you think? Is it driven by enterprises like the commercial organization, or is it driven by the government departments? Like in Qatar, and specifically your experience in other parts of the world, like Kuwait, and you have worked in other countries as well. So what do you think? Is it really a government initiative having digital transformation, or is it driven by the business? Because business need to have connections and consumers, and they need to do their business, do their work, because people cannot come to office, so people have to work from home. So do you think is it primarily because of COVID and commercial initiatives, or is it government organizations that are supporting digital innovation?
First of all, I would like to thank you, Salman, for having me here and the CyberX team. And in regards to the digital transformation, our respected panelists have touched upon a very important points, which I just want to share my point of view as well. The very first thing I would like to highlight is if we consider the digital evolution from past couple of decades, it has basically transformed the overall our lifestyle. It has changed the very fabric of the societies, the way we interact today, and we do the businesses together. This conference is a very example of it. And one more important thing is that when Ahmed has touched upon the digital signatures, and I could see now the governments here in GCC has transformed their governmental, the services model in a way that meant even the civil IDs, such as if I'll take an example of Qatar government or UAE government, they have basically started issuing the computerized digital IDs long way back, and they were having capability to do so. Considering that point of view, what security leaders have to play a role into this thing, I think now due to the cybersecurity evolution, means the CISOs today, or the security leaders, have been given a chance to come and sit with the big boys and start participating into the leadership or strategic decisions, where cybersecurity goes hand in hand with the business decisions, and that becomes the enabler of the business today. And that's what basically makes an importance of cybersecurity leadership today. And unfortunately, I personally, from my experience, the dilemma of our region here in Middle East is that when mostly CISOs, which I have interacted from my basically the clientele, is from the technical background, who are with the limited flavor of business visions. Today, we have a need of security leaders, which comes from a business background with the great visions to drive cybersecurity as a business. That's where basically is important to blend that business and cybersecurity with the help of innovation. And this is the core idea behind the Middle Eastern governments today, to drive the government initiative towards the digitization. If you see that I think we don't have even an example around the globe to compare our government networks or our government systems model, which we have today in UAE or Qatar. I would say and the level of trust citizens and the residents have on that system is unbelievable. That's where basically, the technology is not considered as just a tool. It is basically an enabler to reach out to the people with a certain amount of effort to ensure that systems which we are using behind are secure, robust, and resilient. Because whatever data we are dealing with, considering whatever the cyber threats which we have today and the cyber breach, the data breaches which we are having today, is enormous. It has been increased exponentially. Considering the Corona or COVID-19 episode, I think if I'm not mistaken, the number of breaches has been increased 600 times in the Middle East, or I would say the cyber attacks. That's why cybersecurity has to go hand in hand with the blended flavor, with the help of innovation to enable the business today. And that's the future. A very example I would like to share here in this similar context is of Amazon. Amazon was an initiative, a digital enterprise, which started with the same concept of a digital way of doing business. And today, the 56% of e-commerce revenue of US is only from Amazon. It's one of the five largest IT companies of the globe, and it's the largest digital marketplace today. And that's only because of the trust people have put into that place. And behind the scene, all those factors which Mustafa rightly said, like when their infrastructure is built on zero trust model, all the efforts which have been put into place in order to ensure the security of the systems and the resilience of the systems is keeping the business direction vision in the mind. Keeping this thing in mind that still cybersecurity has to go hand in hand with technological direction and the business direction to deliver the maximum value out of it.
Thanks, Ahmed. Thanks, Ahmed. So I'll continue with with you because it's an interesting discussion, and I know you are a PhD candidate, and your thesis or your topic is digital trust. So I would like you to help us to understand what is digital trust. We all know digital innovation, we all know digital transformation, and as you mentioned, Amazon and a lot of other companies actually in the West, like work from home is not new actually. I can give you my example. Like our 30% workforce was working from home before COVID-19 even. So changing that overnight to 100% or 99% was not a big challenge for us. And I can assume a similar situation with the rest of the companies in the north, or I would say like in the West. So from your experience or your topic of digital trust, what is digital trust and how do you describe that for audience like us or other people?
So in order to understand the concept of digital trust, and I just want to highlight a bit of a background of the way we look into the trust in a real life. In a real life, what is exactly the trust? Trust is something which can be referred as a mental model, which is based on one's experiences, which develops. And that's basically is the belief that a perceived outcome will happen. That's the trust. And that's depends how we deal with each other, how we respect. And traditionally, if we see in a real life, when we deal with each other in the societies, the trust is based on three big main parameters. One is respect. If we don't deal with each other with the respect, there is no concept of the trust, because in one said, like, the highest level of respect which you can give to someone is trusting each other. The second thing is the integrity, the characters, because we have to interact with each other based on some certain defined principles, and we have to stick with that, with the core beliefs. And if we start dealing with each other with highest level of respect and show the integrity, that basically starts the journey of the development of the trust. However, if we bring empathy into it, it goes much deeper. So if we try to understand each other needs, so it goes more deeper and more deeper and more deeper. So if we apply all of these concepts into the digital world, if you see that today we have changed our norms of interacting with each other. We are using Zoom today to meet with each other. We are using WhatsApp to chat with each other. So when we are using other means to verify or ensure the authenticity of documents, of people, or whatever we are interacting with. So having that said, the digital means which we are using, whether it is like, a PKI system or a national authentication service or an e-commerce platform to buy something, we need to develop the verification mechanism around that. So that verification mechanisms is basically divided into 3 core pillars, which we'll discuss into detail. I'll just slightly touch upon it now. That the verification model is like, we need to verify the people who are dealing with that system. Are they real? Are they verified? Or on the second pillar is the data part. What data is being accessed? Is it being secured, protected, or the privacy is maintained? And the third thing is whatever infrastructure, the data, or the servers, the systems which are running behind are secure or not. So if we are able to verify these 3 layers, we can develop a trustworthy relationship. A very common example to share here is the digital certificate. If anyone, a normal person who opens a website with HTTPS, it can shows on the bar, the log icon. If someone clicks on that, it shows the details of the digital certificate, which has what? Which has the details of identity, which has the details of digital signature, a hash, and so on. So having that said, putting all of this thing in the mind and the efforts which needs to put in order to verify people, protect data, and secure systems is the effort of digital trust. And that's, again, we have to keep in the mind the future today is a future of A, B, C. A is for artificial intelligence, B for big data analytics, and C for cloud and cybersecurity. If we combine all of these things, you can make it a digital enterprise of future. And that has to be built on the philosophy of a digital trust if we really want to compete in such a competitive market, which is coming forward in a digital economy.
Understand.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks, Ahmed. So I'll go back to Mustafa, and I want to touch base on zero trust. So here we are talking about building trust, and then we are saying zero trust. Like I don't trust anybody, or I don't trust any technological asset. So how we can basically say we are building digital trust with zero trust model? So Mustafa, I really want to understand this topic, and and see your perspective on that.
So see, we are trying to too much think into it. It's a very, if you go back to basic days, if you let somebody enter your house, even if you know them, you won't let them go through all the rooms, right? You will just let him go to the one dedicated place, and you make him sit there, and he goes out from there. Now you have some other person whom you trust more, you let them go in further in. So that the digital trust is built on the same philosophy. It is something which we have reinvented. We have re-innovated, yes, in the digital world. But the concept goes as basics as that. Now, when you look at typically on how do I build the trust, and you said that, okay, one we are saying building the trust, and then you're saying zero trust. The trust today is built on certain parameters. Those parameters are not a trusted predefined parameters. As you go in, it keeps verifying those, and it gives you that layer after the layer. That one layer goes into the other layer. So if you are saying, I verify and I never trust anyone for that matter, whether it is my application, whether it is my user, whether it is my data. One of the misconceptions today we are having is that, when we talked about trust, we are only talking about users. We are not only just talking about users here. We are talking about applications also. We are talking about data which transfers or which travels across different applications and goes from one area to the other. So all 3 places, and then we create segments of this. So that's the concept of zero trust. The concept of zero trust is not just limited to saying, do I trust you? Do I verify your identity? No, it's not that. User perspective is one element of it, whether you are, verifying the identity of the user. The second part is the applications which are talking to each other. I need to build a trust between the applications. I need to build a trust between my data set, which is flowing through in the organization, or whether it is coming inside the organization or whether it is going outside the organization. That's the concept of the zero trust. And then you build those zero trust based on segmented walls. So you have different doors, you have different goals. So the concept is old, but we have re-innovated in a digital world through utilizing of such, elements, which will then allow you to build the trust as you go element by element. It is not that one identified person or one identified user you have trusted and he is allowed to go everywhere alone. He may not be. The zero trust concept is that it is the application which is touching, and that application is then touching to what? So that is where your impact is. That is why, in just before this digital trust scenario came up, you had people like hacking community who were saying man in the middle attack, used to call DDoS and all those attacks. Today, I have not heard in any, I probably participate in 3 conferences a week, and I have not now heard about people talking about DDoS anymore. The situation has gone way beyond that. Yeah. And people have come up with this zero trust mechanism. People are talking more on identity. So we have to understand that concept very clear. Sometimes I am seeing that when I talk to my customers, when I talk to a lot of people around, there's a still misconception that zero trust is limited to user identity. It is not user identity. It's all level, infrastructure, application, data set, people. So people, process, technology. Your process also need to have the trust with each other process. There are upstream dependencies, there are downstream dependencies. Probably the conversation looks more conceptual, but actually, if you look at it, these are the elements which we touch base on. And that's the main differentiator between what is a trust and what is a zero trust. Trust used to be only the user validating my identity and let me come in as per my role or as per my requirement. But the zero trust is, even if I have the rights, do I have the rights everywhere? Do I have the rights to go do the application which I converse with, the data which I converse with, does that have the right? And that's the concept of zero trust.
Sure. Thanks, Muskan. And I'll like Saudi Arabia, which is trust. People trust each other. They have integrity, they have empathy, as Ahmed mentioned earlier. And having that personal touch is very important in Saudi Arabia. So from cultural perspective, where do you see Saudi Arabia in this journey of digital trust or building that digital trust? And we talk about people, processes, technology, but people are the most important part, because at the end, whatever we do is to help people. Even the technology is there, but technology is to help people. So from your experience in Saudi Arabia and the journey and the cultural transformation, and you also touched based on digital certificate earlier. So a lot of questions here, but I just want to see your perspective and how digital trust is shaping up in Saudi Arabia, where we have a limited visibility to the other side. We don't know who's on the other side, and that human touch is not there. That trust model between people where they want to see each other, shake hand, and do business is not there.
Okay, there are many parts to this question, and most of them were already answered by my colleagues. My colleagues pointed out very important points related to digital trust, but as my opinion, also to contribute to this discussion, digital trust as an easy English language is, we all agree that it's the hardest currency right now. If you lose it, or if you don't develop it correctly from the beginning, it's very hard to regain it back. So if you have a reputational impact from a breach or something, it's very hard to recover from that. So digital trust, in a very simple, plain English, in my opinion, is the confidence in the organization that it will do the right thing. Always will do the right thing. But we will always have this challenge of how to translate the simple thing to technical. You see? So in my opinion, confidence and trust needs to be baked into into all layers of the organization, all elements that build the organization. For example, the people. We need to have confidence in our people serving our customers. We need also to have confidence in our infrastructure and in all components of our infrastructure. We need to have confidence with our vendors also to secure our supply chain and have trustworthy supply chain. Here in Saudi Arabia, I think we are having or taking the right first steps into digital trust in our society. Now, part of Abshir services, we can establish trust through fingerprints on the mobile phone. This is digital trust, and the broker for this trust has to be also trusted, and it's the government. So in my opinion also, that government play a critical role in areas where it's very essential and important to maintain for the whole society. So for example, although now the government regulation is missing some parts about talking about trust or digital trust. All the regulation now is talking about you must have secure authentication, you must have secure websites, but it's never touched based on the building the trust from the beginning. My opinion about zero trust, it's not a new concept actually. It's very old concept. And when we used to design systems, we have a set of security principles that we follow during the design. One of them is assuming that you are in a hostile environment. Everything around you is hostile. And from there, the name has changed through time, and we have this concept or this new name of zero trust, where you don't trust anybody around you. And you have to verify and check and confirm with all the systems and data streams that is coming to your system. Going back to our society here, there's an important part that, in my opinion, not yet covered, which is user awareness. User awareness about digital trust, about whether we can trust somebody we don't know. Can we trust his application on Google Play or Apple Store? Can we trust this website and submit our information? I think we are lacking very hugely in the user awareness, and it's in my opinion, the government responsibility to improve the user awareness, because once you lose your data, or let me bring it another way. Internet does not forget everything. Does not forget anything. Anything you put in the internet will be recorded for life, and you don't know as an end user when this is your information safely kept somewhere in the internet. Somebody is protecting it or not. So I think the government need to have some initiatives to improve the status there. And going back also to the end user trust, I think the transparency of the service providers needs to be improved. Now that we transformed our services to digital services, and we're providing them through mobile applications and between the tips of our customers. We need to be transparent with our customers. Whenever there's something impacting their data, we need to be transparent about that. We need to work we need to have a higher level of ethics and responsibility internally. And we need to act to be accessible to our customers and to to improve their experience. We are, what's the point of having digital transformation or digitalization if we could not improve our customer experience? And we always need to keep our customers engaged and always respond in an acceptable time for the customers. To wrap this up, I think we are doing good from infrastructure point of view. We need government regulations to improve, to include trust and confidence, how systems can be built in that way. And we need to see some initiatives, serious initiatives to improve the awareness of our society on all levels, children and adults and even seniors. This is my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks, Ahmed. Very well answered, and I think you covered all the aspects which are required to build digital trust. And Mustafa mentioned about people, processes, and technology. So we are technology people, like the speakers, the panelists, and the audience on this call. Most of them are technology. I would say security, digital transformation, and technology. So Mustafa, the question is, if it is about people and processes, technology, yes, we as a technology professionals, we can help as a, CTO, CISOs, but the people and process, this is basically outside technology. Because when we talk about processes, we are talking about changing the culture within the organization. And people, IT is only maybe the 5% or maximum 10% of the organization, because most of the organizations are not technology organization. Like if you talk about Amazon, it's a technology organization. But if we see big organizations in Saudi Arabia, like or even the Middle East, those are not technology organizations. So, so where do you see is it digital trust is driven by then, a business people, or business people need to be there on the driving seat, or is it a technology initiative? And if we start as a technology initiative, do you think it will get the visibility and the direction and the support and the funding? So how do you see this in the Middle East?
See, look, there are many answers to what you have just asked. So fundamentally, Ahmed touched base on three very primarily things when you talk about from a people process perspective. Two things from a people process perspective is your awareness to your people, which he touched based on. He has touched based on very important element of third party risk. When third party is coming into your organization, how does it work? And then the entire thing has to be built is what we call it trust by design. So these are the three fundamental parameters which we need to really adopt. Now, today where we see, today let's be realistic. If we say that, business will be the driver for the entire trust framework, in the organization, I think it is too early at this. We are reaching there, and I'm keeping Middle East in focus from that standpoint. It will take a little bit while. Right now, I think the time is of collaboration where the security professionals like us and the business professionals sit together and drive this business for a while till it becomes, when you tick in the box of user awareness that yes, we have done enough. We have regulations around it. People are trusting it. See, the whole point of the trust is not just one-sided. Within the organization, your worry is that what is coming inside my organization. But from a consumer perspective also, I have a problem which organization I'm going inside. So the trust factor has to be established on both sides of the table. It cannot be just on one side. This is one point. Middle East, I have seen a very clear direction from a very senior management, specifically when you look at the government perspective. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, you talk about UAE, Dubai is leading those engagements at a government level, where they are putting focus on digital trusting. You see most of the business today, even if you look at UAE, barely, forget about going to a bank, physically going to a bank has been, I think, day of the past. I don't remember in last 1 year if I've ever visited a branch. But even going now to government offices to even stamp a visa or do this, everything is digitalized. So what is saying is that the government is taking it. Behind those, the corporates, the people in the ministries, and the corporate sector, they are leading that. So it is purely led by business, very clear. But the collaboration has to continue from a security professional perspective because they understand this better. We can't limit it to business only from a process and people perspective because technology is a main enabler. In fact, technology is the leading business enabler into this platform. You look up at any platform on that. It has to join hands together. Process perspective, we need to have a very clear frameworks around how are we going to operate when it comes to digital identity. There has to be a very, very clear framework on how the organization is going to achieve its objective. Right now, just complying with ISO standards or using a framework here and there it's gone are those days. Where ISO 27000 being certified as an organization will tick all the box. It is now the basics. It is not even there as a good thing to have. People just think that, oh, by default, you will be ISO 27001 certified. Nobody looks at it. So when we come about digital trust, business has to take lead. The information, the training part, the awareness part from people like us has to transfer to the business. And we as a professional needs to also look at the business side. Earlier, there was a time, me being a risk manager for a very long period of time, I come from the risk management background. People used to see us as a hindrance or take an auditors, they used to see, every time they will come and say, oh, don't do this, don't do this. Now, the risk managers cannot do that. They have to sit and drive the business. Otherwise, they will be irrelevant to the business. There is absolutely no point, and I would vouch that, from Ahmed's perspective, more when he's into the government organization, where they are the funds management people, doing that. Their business, they are actually, you can't call them a technology company because, they are purely business. They are funding financials. And for the primary focus is to ensure that the trust is built and people can do business with that. So everything is business driven these days. Security professional has to come on this side to the table of business and say, I understand your business. I understand the technology. This is how you can do it. Yeah. When we build Zero Trust, people are today now coming, if you look at any projects of blockchain, and it's a different topic, I don't want to deviate there. But if you look at the blockchain, it is already co-sponsored by cybersecurity professionals and business put together. Without business, I cannot build my blockchain platform. So that is where I see that, what is future coming in, more collaboration. Till it will never be 100% business driven because at the end of the day, you need that technology geek somewhere to help you do that. So it will never be a standalone business deal. But sponsorship will come from there. I am seeing that the investments are coming. Business is now focusing. Every organization I go and meet, I earlier used to meet only CISOs or CIO at the max. Now today I'm meeting CROs, CFOs, and they are the one talking about the Zero Trust. I was pleasantly surprised that, CFO has today more awareness about Zero Trust because they are taking this seriously because they know that, if the business is going to impact, if identity leads to a breach, the cost of the breach and the downtime of the business will take them out of the market. So that's my viewpoint. They have to go together for a while and they will continue to build this journey together.
So thanks a lot. And you are right, like you put a lot of aspects. And I agree with you, like if we start talking about blockchain, although that was one of the topic I wanted to cover, but I think we need a separate discussion for that. It's a very lengthy topic. So bringing blockchain into digital trust, yeah, maybe another time. So we'll continue this discussion and I'll go to Ahmed Javed. So Ahmed, you are doing, you are basically PhD candidate and that is you are doing from the US, one of the universities in the US. So from your perspective and from your learning, what a good digital trust model look like from infrastructure, people and processes perspective? And if we take that and you do a comparative analysis with the organizations in the Middle East, which organization or the country do you think is leading that charge?
Right. So I think when our respected members have already touched upon almost each and every point, but I'd just like try to connect the dots here. When Ahmed have highlighted a very, very important point is like when whether and from a Mustafa's point of view that when whether we put all the efforts, we're gonna develop the highly secure infrastructure, very resilient based on the zero trust model, which gonna be developed based on the interactions, systems, and applications we're going to have with others. And in the parallel, when we're going to have a separate identity and access management framework implemented system, which will define and host the digital identities to verify people. And then accordingly, like, the data protection efforts going to go hand in hand in order to develop an effective zero trust framework customized for your very organization, keeping the business direction in the mind. Because as it's been perceived that the security people were always been perceived as a hindrance towards the business initiatives, which as we together we opposed, and we agreed to this point that cybersecurity leaders have to be a business enabler, sitting with the business leaders, making the business decisions together. Having that said, the people part is still going to remain the most important with the philosophy of the cybersecurity as the strongest link if they are aware. So their awareness, their development, their mentoring, their counseling, their coaching with the mindset of digital trust is important and has to be fabricated within their cybersecurity awareness programs today. Because if we don't do that, they will not be able to come up as best people to deliver the quality service to their customers, ensuring the security and the trust needs of the customers today using the digital platforms. That's one thing. Second thing is, there's a separate topic to be discussed, which due to shortage of time, and I'll just slightly touch upon that, the concept of digital ethics and the privacy. How an attendant or our organization personnel or an official who is interacting with a customer, private information, which is PI or personally identified information, how he's supposed to deal with that information. What measures needs to be considered? So all of these questions needs to be answered with the proper legislative framework where not only the business leaders, even the regulators and the governments have to play a very important role by defining a proper legislations, laws, and the specific standards which are compliant and compatible with our Middle Eastern markets. Considering the cultural aspects, we should not ignore the cultural compatibility here when we are talking about behaving with people. That's one thing. Second thing I will want to definitely touch upon, because when we are talking about the people, we need to consider within the organization as a CISO, what efforts he has to put in place in order to maximize his contribution in developing the digital trust. One is, as we rightly said, he has to implement the means of verifying people from a digital identity and access management framework perspective. He has to implement and drive the initiatives of data protection and privacy within the organization. The third thing is he has to ensure the security and robustness, scalability, as well as the resiliency of the infrastructure, whether it's just network layer or systems layer and so on. However, from a governance perspective, that's a big question where I would like to share my opinion, and then I would definitely love to hear about from other members as well, that who ideally should be owning it. First of all, from a governance point of view, what I feel, my opinion is that digital trust is a measure which basically helps the digital business leaders to assess the health of their business relations with their stakeholders, internal, external, suppliers, customers, and so on. So in my opinion, it should be identified as a metric and implemented as a KRI to monitor as a risk indicator, a threshold. And it should be monitored by above than the CISO. CISO has a greater responsibility to ensuring the cybersecurity measures, and there's a business resilience part where facilities and the other people, HR and finance and the administration part has to come into play. But the CRO is, in my opinion, is the best person to own this digital trust as a risk indicator to monitor and measure the threshold to ensure the health of business relationships with their stakeholders in this digital enterprise. That's one. Why? Because digital trust, as Ahmed rightly said, is a currency today to do the business within this big digital economy. If there's no trust, if I don't trust today the eBay, I will not buy anything. If I don't trust the Visa, I will not use their cards. If I don't trust my bank, I will not keep my bank account or the electronic money there. Similarly, the philosophy goes the same way. At the end, what I want to say is that digital trust is not a technology or a process or a one-time element. It's a journey, it's a mindset. And cybersecurity is a lifestyle. So learn it, live it, nurture it, and share it. This is my message.
Thanks a lot, Ahmed. And I can see it's a great discussion, very interesting discussion. And I love to continue, but we have a shortage of time here. So we are reaching to the end of the hour. And before actually we close the session and maybe we take some questions from the audience if there is any, I would like to wrap up and take one statement from each of you. And I'll start with Ahmed, and then we go to Mustafa, and then we'll come to Javed. Like, what is the one thing that you want to leave with the audience? A statement, a slogan, or a message that you want to conclude and leave with the audience that stays with them. So I'll start with Ahmed first, and then we'll go to Mustafa, and then we'll come to Javed, and then we will conclude our session.
Well, I want to conclude with this message. Digital trust is not the only, it is not the responsibility of only cybersecurity. It's the responsibility of the whole organization altogether. Anybody working in the organization can break this trust. It's hard to earn, very easy to lose, okay? And we don't need to overcomplicate it, because the biggest enemy of security is complexity. And this is something new introduces to security. We need to think about it, simplify it as much as we can, and then we build it into our culture and into our values also. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Mustafa, over to you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So for me, it was, I think, it is simple statement would be, keep, when you do design, think trust as a design model. When you look at anything you want to design, look at it from a trust perspective. Look at it from how you can secure and build resiliency into your organization. Today, you do not have those faces whom you can recognize and let them come in or let them go out, whether it is in shape of an application, whether it is in shape of a people, whether it is shape of a process. You don't have that luxury to see it, feel it. So you need to have that trust factor, but you should have that design thinking. That I leave it for all the cybersecurity professionals and the business to leave it, saying that please bring the design thinking of trust into your schema of business.
Thank you. Javed?
Yeah, Salman, so finally what message I want to deliver is that digital trust is, as I said, is a mindset. So in this journey, the most important element going to remain the people part. So we still need to follow the same core principles or the core philosophy of the trust, which is respect, integrity, and empathy. So more we're going to exercise that using the digital means, more effectively we'll be able to develop the trust model with our internal and external stakeholders.
Great, thanks a lot. Thanks, Ahmed. I have two questions, and one question I will, request Mustafa to answer, and the second question I will leave for Ahmed Al-Anazi. So the question to Mustafa, this is a question from the audience. What skills and training are required to support zero trust model or zero trust understanding? So what skills and training do you think are required?
So see, from a skill perspective, you need to have, see, there are many aspects, because see, you cannot have a one person holding the role of entire zero trust journey. And so there are many people who will come along the way. So there is no single skill set which will work. Now you need to be a risk adverse. You need to have that thought in your mind that you understand risk management. And Ahmed Javed, he was telling about this should be the ownership of the CRO perspective. And from that perspective, you need to have that risk management in your place. You need to understand this identity and access management as a skill, before you go to the zero trust. And then the intuition of any security, today, if you look at it in the scheme of ISACA UAE, or ISACA as a global organization, there are so many certifications, they have got cyber security, all types of audit, enterprise, implementation of cybersecurity, all of them will touch base on identity access or digital identity as their main pillar. So I think from a skill perspective, you need to do it, but more importantly, you need to develop that soft skill of understanding how to mitigate the risk. How do I, do things while designing? How do I keep that design in mind that I need to build it? That is more of a skill set required. That soft skill is more important. The hard skill, you will get it in different ways and means. I don't think so that anyone will come up, including myself or the panelist over here, would come up and say, look, I've got all the Philanthrop certificates. That's why I'm talking about zero trust. It is the understanding that, you build, you look at what are the risks which organization carries, the identity and access management as a subject, and if you want to go for a specific skill, and overall have the design thinking, as a soft skill developed, you will succeed there. And that's my viewpoint.
Sure, great. And last and a question to Ahmed. So the question is, how important is identity access management to deploying services for a government entity? Although Mustafa touched based on that, identity and access management is important, but the question from the audience is, how important is the access or identity management to deploy services in the government entity?
Actually, it's maybe the most important thing to establish there, because without now we have digital trust. We have digital identity. We need to establish the trust actually between the person and his identity in order to establish, to open the services for him. So, in my opinion, it's maybe the most important thing. And in the traditional way that we used to do it, you go to the government office, you present your identity, and they manually verify. Now we need to do that in a digital way, and we need to make sure that it's secure, and all these steps between the presentation of the providing the identity and proving the authenticating it, till the service, that all the steps in between are secure and also trusted. So there are many ways to do that. And I think there's a huge space for innovation. We have smartphones now, and we can use them. And in my opinion, also, this will open up new opportunities and new businesses in this area. So as a summary for the answer, yes, it's maybe it is the most important thing to establish, and from the government agencies, because everything else will be based on this trust relationship between the identity and the owner of the identity.
Great, thanks a lot. Thanks, gentlemen. Really appreciate your participation, and it was really great discussion. I love to chat more, but we have a time constraint. We need to wrap up our session. Here it is 11 a.m. in the morning. I still have a long day to go, but good afternoon and good evening there.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for providing the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you.